We have exited wide receiver row in 3 successive weeks. We had Nate Burleson, Randy Moss, and Troy Williamson. And so now we're going to stick to an analysis show tonight, and we have a handful of topics, I'd say about 8 or 9 things, and I'm sure more impromptu stuff will come up along the way. And these are going to be hodgepodge and random, the order I selected them. So the first thing I want to talk about is a Dan Orlovsky tweet that I don't know what compelled him to tweet this, but he said that there would be 3 teams that he foresaw would be the surprise team that picked a quarterback in the first round in this draft. And for some reason, he put the Saints on that list. To me, that wouldn't be a surprise at all because, they just had Drew Brees retire. So, of course, they might have it in their plans to get a replacement for him. Jameis Winston be damned. I said the Seahawks. That one would be a surprise because they have one of the best in the business. And they put your Minnesota Vikings in there. So I wanted to get the group's thoughts on what, if that indeed happened, if Trey Lance or Mac Jones or one of those dudes fell to the Vikings, what would our emotions be? And I'm going to start with you, Sally.
I think I would be cautiously optimistic if that happens. I don't foresee it happening I just can't imagine a scenario where those guys did fall. But I don't know. I guess is he insinuating that they might trade up?
It was open-ended. So in theory that could happen. I interpreted it as that Trey Lance fell all the way to them. And then therefore the home state connection, they couldn't resist him, but that was only my interpretation.
Sure. If the home state thing really triggered them to make a pick, I'd be pretty disappointed if that was the reason, but crazier things have happened, right? I don't know. I would be really surprised if that happened, but I wouldn't be upset.
Okay. Bryant, do you think that there is, or how would you feel if the Vikings said, you know what, we're going to go get our quarterback of the future in addition to having one that we pay handsomely?
I wouldn't be mad at that at all. That would probably let Cousins know to step his game up for this next season, but also it would give the quarterback a chance to kind of learn, in a supporting role behind Cousins, because I don't see him coming right in and taking the position, but I see they will want to groom him a little bit, give him a year or two to learn behind Cousins.
Yeah, and I miss that. And that's, way back when they didn't have to wait for a long time. Mm-hmm. But quote unquote, these days, they usually get thrown in with the patch over quarterback, and that generally lasts 4 to 8 games, depending on when the record goes pear-shaped. And then our guest tonight, Drew from Indianapolis, what would be your temperature on that transaction?
I think it's interesting, and I guess I take it kind of both ways. If he meant it open-ended, that makes sense from Orlovsky because he just runs out of the back of end zones. So everything is open-ended to Dan Orlovsky. But if I'm looking at it, if I'm looking at it, if it's a quarterback hungry team, I look at something like Pittsburgh at 24, they've realistically got one more year with Big Ben, no one really behind them, probably geared up for a full rebuild. If Trey Lance got to 14, depending on what it looked like, I would almost prefer a trade back. We understand kind of where we're at with Cousins, and realistically, this season almost feels like a one last ride with Spielman and Zimmer, kind of based on how it develops. So. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be more of a Band-Aid job about fixing the trenches and getting us to move in the right direction.
Yeah, but, I also go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that was it.
Oh, okay. I also agree. And I think most of us do that it is a referendum, particularly on Zimmer. I don't think Spielman would be as close to the chopping block as Cousins and Zimmer would be if this thing were to go 6-10 or something. And that would be pretty bad for the Vikings because always remember that Zimmer, even you, Sally, can remember this. Zimmer's bad years are mediocre. He's never had a bad one. And Bryant pointed this out about 3 months ago about 5 months ago now when we were talking about at 1-5, should Zimmer go? And Bryant said, has he ever had a bad year? And I'm like, he's had disappointing mediocre years, but he's never had a bad one. Ron, what about Trey Lance or Mac Jones at 14 if they fell, or the idea of trading up?
So I don't like the idea of taking one of those guys at 14, just for the simple fact that it seems like 4 are going to go in the top 10. It seems that's almost all but a lock. And all that's going to do is push some of those, tackles or even cornerbacks or wide receivers, positions that, we could either stock up on or, we need offensive line. I mean, we're going in with Dozier slated as a starter, and we all know how that goes. So I'm fully on board of getting the best offensive lineman that's there as long as it's one of the top 3. Otherwise, I wouldn't reach to take his name's slipping me, the USC kid, but if that at that point, then trading back for whether it's one of those teams jumping up for a quarterback or a Micah Parsons, whatever slips. So I think the way our team is constructed, the way we improve the defense in the free agency, and to be able to go into the into the regular season with the offense being potent that it was last year, but if you improve the offensive line, like, that'll just help that much more, because our defense isn't going to be bottom 5 this year. So I wouldn't be happy with a quarterback at 14, but I'm all for second, third round or whatever, throwing a dart at the wall and seeing what happens. But we need a starter with our first pick.
I feel like, what is, even if they were going to get a quarterback, what is the point in getting another quarterback if you're still not going to fix the offensive line?
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, what if you're never going to focus on that? It doesn't really matter who you have at quarterback. There's always going to be issues. So, it would be just kind of silly, I think. And I've felt that way about, my problem isn't that I don't like Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. And what I get frustrated is, you spent all this money to bring him in here, and then you didn't give him the tools that he needs to succeed, to be the guy, to match the paycheck he's receiving, right? Like, you guys still haven't given him the resources at this point. So to just swap quarterbacks, I think would just, be silly.
And I always say with Cousins, if Cousins and his throwing ability and quarterback play that he has, if he had Case Keenum's ad lib ability, he'd be a top 5 quarterback in the league. Because he clearly has the arm ability. Like, I would put his arm talent in that top 5, but yeah, there's other areas that are lacking, and pressure up front, he sometimes can get a little frazzled behind there. So but yeah, if you fix that, he's got the weapons on the outside, he's got the running game, so he could still be in that 10 to 12 range, which is where he's being paid, at least this year. Next year, I know it'll balloon a little bit, but I think people talk like he's old. He's Russell Wilson's age. Like, so if Russell Wilson still has plenty of years left, which I actually think Cousins has more years left than Wilson, because he doesn't get hit the way that Wilson does as far as the scrambling aspect. So
when he hasn't had injuries either, his whole career, like the other guys have.
Yeah, Wilson and Cousins have been surprisingly durable. Wilson's been, that one is like, somebody should write a novel about it, because he's been sacked more than anybody since he entered the league, and he's never missed a football game. And
it's close to the ground, easy to fall.
It's that lower body, man. That guy is thick. I mean,
Cousins is also durable as hell, but he's not quite like that. All right, so
got to have a thick lower
I always
to keep that ego.
I always say, if you spend big money on like a new car, you want to make sure you have a great insurance policy in place, and your offensive line is your insurance policy.
Yeah, last year we made the mistake of, and we're going to talk about this in about 5-10 minutes. We have a topic of Dozier, so keep that topic at the forefront of your brain. We went into it thinking Elflein and Dozier were sufficient with guards, and unless they do something in the draft or they do something creative in free agency, it feels eerily familiar. So I'm hoping that they've learned from the errors of their ways. Sticking on the draft topic, I'm going to go to you, Drew. To start off with, I think the only thing for certain about the first round pick, no matter if it's 14 or trade back or trade up, is that it won't be a running back. Other than that, everything is on the table. Linebacker is on the table, in my opinion. Cornerback is on the table. The trenches, wide receiver, everything. And this is kind of foreign for a Vikings draft, which actually gives me encouragement because they've loaded up on the depth chart for the most part, besides the offensive line. But cornerback keeps creeping up. And we're going to touch on Jeff Gladney's stuff right after this topic. But would you, I called it a fetish last week that Zimmer has, and Sally thought that was an interesting term that I used. Would you roll your eyes if it's cornerback again?
I spent some of today thinking, what is the most Zimmer move? The most Zimmer move is trading up and getting Pat Surtain. That's the most Zimmer move. But would I roll my eyes? Yeah, I don't know where the value is. Surtain will be gone. He's probably going to the Cowboys.
Yeah,
if I really had to put money on it. But beyond that, if I'm looking at who's going to follow, you got J.C. Horn, which is a great man corner, which understandably, with a better line, a better defense, theoretically, we may play more man. I know historically that was a Zimmer piece, but I don't know that the value's there. I don't know that there's a guy who fits the system appropriately. I would much rather see a Darashaw if that happens. But yes, hard eye roll, like all the way over and down.
Sally, would you roll your eyes if it's corner?
No, I'd probably just laugh. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a big best player available gal. So, if that is the best player available, which it sounds like you guys don't think the value is going to be there, then I don't know. I don't see cornerback because of what you guys just said, but if there was, a real stud up there, I think he would for sure make sure it happened.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe he might do a DB too. You don't know.
Yeah. Bryant, do you put any stock, Bryant, into do you think at all about the best player available debate versus positional team need on draft
Well, I
night?
mean, I know when I was coming out of the draft, they always talked about you could be the best player available, but a team normally is going to go off what the team needs. So that's how I was told. They normally go by what the team needs. But I mean, sometimes the best players out there, they might just take a chance and scoop them.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like such a tiny difference when you're talking about that level of talent of what is the best, when we're mixing all positions together.
Yeah.
And there's always that weird balance of like left tackle's a premium position, quarterback premium position. You don't see safeties going very high unless it's like a Sean Taylor type player, Ed Reed, those type of guys. So it's always it's weird how they build the draft board and put the weight where it is, because obviously there's talent level, then positional need, and then where does then position come into play? So, I mean, obviously, Bryant, you being a left tackle, like I know Mike Williams was the guy taken ahead of you. I don't think he played much left tackle in the NFL. I feel like he played more right tackle with Buffalo, but I can't remember. So that alone, I know you had said that there was talks about you going ahead of him for that reason. And if you look at the class that's coming out this year, where up at the top with Sewell and now Slater, Slater, they say he could play anywhere on the offensive line. So to me, that I feel like that would increase his value, but it seems like they're looking at it as it's decreasing his value. And I don't quite understand that, because I would say if a guy can play all five, like you test him outside, and if he's not good there,
maybe times have changed because when I was playing, they said you were more valuable the more you could do, the more positions you could play. So maybe times have changed, I guess, and I don't know how that decreases you when the more you can do.
Right. I mean, everyone wants to be like Pat Elflein and excel at every position.
He's very unique.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Drew?
It's a height issue with Slater, right? He's only 6'3", so they're worried about him being able to keep up with some of these 6'7" edge guys. If I had to pick somebody, if it wasn't one of the premier tackles that were there, I think it's Kwity Paye from Michigan, just selfishly, so I could print "Get Liddy with Kwity" shirts and just sell the hell out of them.
Oh, you're an entrepreneur on top of it all.
Yeah, you should have kept that to yourself because somebody's gonna rip that off.
You heard it here first, all right? I'm calling the patent.
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube, so your face can be seen saying it, and you can point to it. So if it's a corner, I'm going to do the exact same thing Sally is laugh. I will, because it'll confirm stereotypes. It'll confirm the fetish. And it will be like, this is what he always does. But I'm going to bet that Ron agrees with me here. If you look long-term, and that's a year from now, the only cornerback that will probably be cemented on this roster is Cameron Dantzler. Peterson's here on a one-year deal. So is Mackenzie Alexander. Gladney may not play for this team again. And then if we're not going to draft one this year, then we're going to draft a rookie one next year, whether Zimmer's here or not, or we're going to extend Peterson, which would be, ideal, assuming he played well in 2021. But Ron, where do I go wrong in that logic?
I don't think you're wrong at all, because Dantzler is the only one who looks like a surefire, player on the team, but also with the long-term upside. Now, what I wouldn't discount is because it feels like there's there's obviously Surtain, and then whether JC Horn or Caleb Farley or whoever they have as a number 2, 3, whatever. I feel like what, in my opinion, my gut's telling me is what's more likely is maybe the Vikings are trading up to get into the second round or late first, depending on what's there, and snag one. If Farley starts to fall because of his injury concern, that's a move I could see Zimmer making, or going up and getting Asante Samuel Jr. He loves those NFL bloodlines. Maybe not necessarily in who he takes, but he's that old ball excuse me, old football coach that he likes that. So we'll see what happens, but that would be where I'd put my money, is that he's going to look to trade up, or someone's going to get him that capital to get into the second round or late first, and take a cornerback at that spot.
Yep. And and if history is a reasonable indicator, that's happened before to get Harrison Smith in 2012 and then to get Bridgewater at the very end of that night, which was at the time, and I still think it was pretty sweet. Well, Gladney's name came up, and this will be the first time we've talked about his shenanigans on this show because we were busy talking to Moss, Williamson, and Burleson. Sally, do you think Gladney plays for the Vikings again? And if not, is the Spielman to blame at all for any of this?
I'm going to answer the second part of your question first. Okay, absolutely not. That is the most ridiculous. And I would criticize Rick Spielman more than anyone. That is such an absolute unfair criticism of him, unless it comes out that there was some incident that they were aware of that was swept under the rug. But I don't know how in 2020 that really happens anymore, like it did, especially with domestic violence, how much more seriously it's being taken in general around the country. I would hope that, they wouldn't draft somebody like that. Of course, it's gonna, be a blemish on his record because, he drafted him, but there's no way that he could have known that. So I don't think that that's fair. But as I don't know, it's tough to say. I hate to convict somebody before we have all of the facts, but it seems pretty bad. I think the fact that the police charged him so quickly after the incident, it seems like there's some pretty good evidence that this actually did happen. And like I said, the culture has changed a lot, and definitely even in the NFL that they take these things a lot more seriously. So I don't think we'll probably see him this year. Who knows if what he does in the meantime, if he gets some counseling, if he, really tries to get his act together, I think then he does deserve a second chance, because I think all of us would appreciate that if we, did something awful. There's obviously some psychological issues going on there, so that need to be evaluated. So I hope not, but I'd be surprised if we see him this year for sure.
Okay. Bryant, you have dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of friends that played professionally in these types of situations. So you know what happened with Gladney, right?
No.
Oh, in Texas, he was arrested for beating the crap out of his girlfriend, a woman he was in a relationship with, and the details were particularly vile, like dragging her and attempted strangulation, and that broke about a week and a half ago, and it's gone radio silent since then. So I'm not sure what's coming next.
Well, and there's witnesses too. It's not really a he said, she
really?
said, because remember the article says that she jumped into someone's car because he drug her outside by the hair, and random people passing by, let her jump into their van. So, I mean, it seems like, it's not just going to be those two, saying that one of them is making it up or whatever. There's evidence, it seems like.
Okay. Bryant, in situations, and probably not for you personally, because you have that gentle giant vibe about you, is it usually immaturity or alcohol or anger management, or what have you observed over the years when you hear about incidents like this?
I'm actually friends with a couple who kind of went through this publicly, Ray Rice and his wife, Janae. Yeah. And there's he doesn't drink, but I think he might have had a drink that night, but he's not a drinker. Theirs was different because I didn't know nothing about it. I learned about it when everybody else did. Mm-hmm. But then I spoke to them, after the fact. So it came out I guess 4 or 5 months after the fact, but they had already started going to counseling, but they just had to relive it again. Where does it stem from? I really don't know where it stems from, honestly.
It's different for everybody,
Yeah, I think everybody has their different reasons. I don't know. It could have been a frustration builder. I have no clue. Okay. Really what happened with this situation, but I was aware that it happened, and they're still together. They, went to counseling. They actually had another kid since then, and they have moved on since and seem to be better. But I really didn't know. I didn't see this coming, and then I kind of still was kind of by both of their sides, where I feel like a lot of people kind of abandoned the situation, and I feel like that kind of showed him who were their friends and who wasn't, because she didn't leave and she decided to stay, and she kind of has a better idea of why this happened, and we don't. And they were able to work it out. I figured I, give it a second chance and kind of hang there with them and make sure everything is good. So, I mean, that's kind of what I did.
Okay. Ron, do you think Gladney will put on a purple helmet with white horns on it again?
So At this time, I don't. I feel like it's one of the, not saying he doesn't deserve a second chance or he won't get it. I mean, obviously Joe Mixon's still in the league and he's being paid handsomely, but it's like, Brian, I know that with Ray Rice being your teammate and everything, like I thought the way that everything played out after, because he never got that second chance. Like, even though, yeah, like you said, he worked on it. Him and his wife were still together, and obviously they were able to get through it. Now, I'm not condoning anything he did, nor do I think you are either by what you said. But I feel like a second chance is.
He didn't really get a second chance because some people were aware of the situation and then pretended they didn't know, and they were getting called out about videotapes and stuff being delivered, and they were acting like they weren't delivered. So now you're not going to embarrass the brand. We're going to now just,
now it's funny you bring that up. So it's like, Urban Meyer is in Jacksonville. Urban Meyer at Ohio State essentially covered up like whoever it was that was beating his wife. Like, and I don't know if it's the coach aspect versus player aspect, or the race issue that is out there. Even a coach that he brought in, like, we had some sort of the strength guy who had his issues. They hired him knowing of his past and for his racially charged stuff with his players, but they hired him knowing that only because they got backlash that they fired him. So it seems like there's that double standard as it is. Like, obviously we're all aware that here in Minnesota we see what's going on now, but yeah, I mean, I feel like players, to get back to the original Gladney question, players will get their second chance, and I think it's rightfully earned. They should be able to start over and work them. They show everyone's been young, and you grow as a person and you learn from mistakes. So I don't see it being in purple unless he's acquitted of anything, unless it comes out that it's a money grab or something. But yeah, like Sally said, I feel like there is enough evidence out there that where there's smoke, there's fire, or that type of thing. So, and I think it's completely different than the Deshaun Watson case that's going on, where that seems just very fishy with what's going on. But yeah, I mean, we need to replace Jeff Gladney one way or another. Yeah. So
most scandals, the fixer of scandals is time. People forget, and then hopefully you have redemption, forgiveness, if the person is worthy of it or wants it. But usually if it's politics, for sports, if enough time passes, that's when you can start to either just not care anymore or let it heal. I mean, if you take your temperature on what you thought of Adrian Peterson in October of 2014 versus now, I don't know that he ever really came out and proclaimed to be a different guy, but it's just so far in the past, and he rationalized it in terms of that's the way his father disciplined him, and we just kind of forget about it. And that's the way it goes with scandals and with time. Drew,
to jump on that, I mean, people who commit domestic violence against people they love also saw that most likely from their parents, right? So it's like, he is now an adult, he needs to take responsibility for it. But what I would be concerned from a team aspect, if I'm the GM, you have to worry about this guy's impulse control in general now. And, obviously violence is the worst of it, but you don't know, is this guy going to be a hothead in the locker room? Is he going to make bad choices in his car, speeding, or, is he going to get into arguments with teammates that aren't violent necessarily, but just aggressive in nature? And so now he just ripped the Band-Aid off, and now you know that something psychologically needs to be evaluated. So,
and also to your point,
how that's handled.
With for people who are blaming Spielman or saying that he messed up, like, those people just should go straight to hell. Like, that's just the dumbest take ever.
Why do they say he messed up?
Because of the character concerns that were coming out when he was at Texas because he had marijuana or issues. Like,
marijuana issues doesn't give you.
It does the exact opposite. No,
yeah. Right.
It should make him anti-hitting women if he's smoking weed.
But like, for people saying that, like, because he drafted him, he didn't vet out the process. Like, anything could happen at the flip of the switch. Like, who knows if you're drinking or whatever, and something, your personality is changing, you can be a different person. So for anyone who thinks that Spielman's to blame, like, whether or not you like the guy or not, there's 0% unless he hid something.
Or like, unless Spielman did this every time, taking the baddest man on the planet, hoping for the best, then he clearly
when they turn the character issues or red flags of athletes like Dalvin Cook, like, if anything were to happen to him in the future, God forbid, like, are they going to say, well, they knew this coming out of Florida State that he had character problems? Like, so just
to talk about, to somebody to compare him to, Chris Cook did have those character issues. I know this is 2010, but that's by comparison, I think something Rick Spielman should be held accountable for. because that was multiple issues. There was a domestic violence issue. There were drug issues. There were
Wait,
also.
I played with Chris Cook.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not shitting on Chris Cook, but I'm saying that's different to me than Gladney, because with Chris Cook, there was a history.
Right.
Of
They knew about the domestic, like same reason like with Tyreek Hill in Kansas City. Like there's a reason why he ended up going to Northern Alabama, because he got kicked off his college team for punching and choking his pregnant girlfriend. So he was a 5th round pick, clearly just off the field stuff, not because of his talent. So some coaches will sweep certain things under the rug, which is funny because apparently Kareem Hunt was the deal breaker there in Kansas City. But I don't know. To blame the GM is dumb.
I'm pretty sure they're eternally upset they didn't slow roll that one. It was just the point in time they had to make a statement. But Drew, we forgot about you for a couple minutes.
No worries.
What's your temperature on Gladney, and will he play for the Vikings again?
Yeah, so I don't think he will.
Okay.
To Sally's point, there's a lot of evidence here that dictates drug outside of a car, all those things. If guys like Greg Hardy, for example, Alvin Smith can get second chances in the league, it'll happen. But those guys were also like real talents, which Gladney was a 1st round pick, and someone will take a chance on him somewhere. I don't think it's with us. I don't think it's this year. And you have to question, as a mid-graded rookie corner in your first year, is it worth that reach for any team that's out there?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Thoughts to Gladney. Hope that he figures out, what's going on. You hate to see somebody go back to a bad situation after becoming an instant millionaire and having to deal with that. But yeah, man, it's ugly all around.
I don't think.
Can I ask you guys, do you know what the minimum punishment is of this if he does get convicted by the league?
2 years. Oh, 1 year. Excuse me. I believe it's 1 year for the.
Well, it seems like the league
suspend him for 1 year with no pay, right? The commissioner list.
I believe so.
But it seems like the league makes it up as they go on. Like every punishment is different, and which it's.
No, you're right. I just didn't know if there was a new, because Ray Rice, they really came down on him because of the video. But then, when there's not a video, they don't normally respond that drastically.
Video will eternally change everything, and especially with all the stuff we're seeing in Minneapolis, that shit has happened for decades, and like the police brutality, and the only reason right now that is coming to a head and there's finally justice is because there's video. I swear to Christ, that's the way it goes, and it's criminal in an unironic way that it just takes a little bit of technology to bring it to the forefront. Drew, I'm going to go back to you, and I want to talk about a less serious issue, like football personnel. Since we talked without extra player guests, Eric Wilson, Anthony Harris, Jaleel Johnson, and Shamar Stephen all found new homes, and they're not in Minneapolis. How much will the Vikings collectively miss those dudes?
Can I give you like negative percentage points? I think the only one that we'll really truly miss is Harris, maybe. But for the price tag, I don't think that's the case. I think Xavier Woods provides a good Band-Aid there. But Johnson, Eric Wilson had a ton of turnovers last year, but we can argue like up and down how fluky that is and the realistic chance that stuff's going to happen. But I don't think we will. I think that Troy Dye will take a step and replace what Eric Wilson would have been as far as the depth guy there. Johnson, I don't know where he would have played or how he would have rotated in. Harris would be the only one I would have a question mark, and that's still a TBD based on Woods and how that works out.
Okay. Bryant, when you have a somewhat veteran presence, not a nucleus, but a hodgepodge of 4 or 5 dudes that exit the team and they're replaced with the new guys, is there like an acclimation process for the new guys, or is it pretty instant chemistry, or does it depend, or how does it go?
They have to develop chemistry. Everybody has to get kind of used to each other and kind of build some type of chemistry. Especially when you have like some veteran guys who everybody's used to, know how they act, and kind of just know them. When new guys come in, you do try to get a feel for them, even if you care for them at all. You know what I'm saying? So there is a process of just really trying to get to know the person.
Okay.
Now, how is it? Well, I was just going to ask Brian on this. So, like, to my count, we have like from our starting defense this year versus last year, we'll have 7 new starters, and that's not counting, and that's including. Or that Dantzler was a starter last year, or assuming he was, and then Barr missing time. So with that said, with the 7 new guys, because Daniil Hunter's one that wasn't there last year, Michael Pierce, is there something that, and granted they were horrific last year. But as a player, when there's that much like new guys, whether they're new after missing a year, like Hunter did, or just everyone being new, does that have a negative impact or more of a positive impact on the team?
No, it should have a decent impact because this is when your OTAs and things like that that's the purpose of those. Especially when new guys come in, to have your OTAs, to get timing down, get communication down, start to understand how the player who's next to you, how they move and handle things, and that helps you get a better idea of how to play, with new guys. So that's really the purpose of it. So like I said, like last year, they didn't get a chance to have all that, and it looked like it on defense. But hopefully this year they get a chance to, have that time period and then go into training camp and already know the type of player they're playing with.
Ron, will the Vikings miss those 4 dudes?
To Drew's point, I don't see any big miss out of that. I mean, Wilson as the third linebacker, I think that's the only one where we really have a significant drop because I can't say what Nick Vigil's abilities are. I know he's a good tackler, probably a better tackler than Wilson, but Wilson's speed was great at the linebacker spot. But being a third linebacker, you don't need that, for 70 plays a game. They play, 20, 30 plays. So, and Harris, I feel like his drop off in play over the past couple of years or over last year compared to the year before was significant. And I actually think Xavier Woods is a very underrated player. Like Dallas has never had like a good defense. And when he was at his best was when he was playing next to Byron Jones, when he was playing safety for the Cowboys. So, and Byron Jones is a cornerback and he's not nearly the player that Harrison Smith is. So I think that alone is going to help. His range in the back end of the secondary, I think he can replace what Harris does. So the other guys, I mean, they're all rotational at best. Armand Watts and Julio Johnson, very similar players. And don't forget about James Lynch, who we drafted last year in the 4th round. So yeah, I don't think they'll be missed.
Okay. Sally, do you think we'll miss Anthony Harris?
Well, Anthony Harris, that's going to probably be determined, like you guys said. He did have a down year last year, so it's kind of hard to say where he's going to go now. Selfishly, I'm going to miss him because he would have been the one current player I could definitely get on this show. So he went to my rival high school, and then I see him out a lot. So I definitely could have got him on here. So, but I'm more bummed about Eric Wilson. I think, you have an undrafted guy on the team who really improved his game over the 3 years under Zimmer. He'd had a much bigger role last year. He had a couple picks against the one coming to mind is Russell Wilson towards the end of the game in Seattle. And I feel like we're not recognizing his special teams contributions. He had some pretty good splash plays there on special teams. So I'm also going to miss Eric Wilson because it's rumored that the Lizzo song is about him. And
I didn't know that.
But yeah, all of those guys I think will be fine.
And to be fair, I will say I wasn't far off on the salary for Eric Wilson on what he got. Just wrong team. So.
Yeah, no, you absolutely nailed that. I think one unsung thing about Wilson is he was the only Viking to play every game from 2017 until 2020 because he got his start on special teams, which Sally points out in an apropos way. So indeed, and it's not like we're good to go on special teams. It's not like we can just miss him without a beat. So this new coach, Ryan Ficken, he's going to have to, and the bar is pretty low. So hopefully he'll be leaps and bounds better than Maloof. We talked about Dozier about 15 minutes ago, and I basically want to know if any of you disagree with this. So some of you, I don't know if you guys, but the body politic got upset when the Vikings re-signed him because we're going to start him again and he sucks and all this. And yes, he was very bad, as virtually every metric there is that can adjudicate a player says. They signed him, in my opinion, to be a depth guy. There's absolutely no meat into his contract. He could be cut right in training camp, right after preseason, and I don't think he's going to be the starting guard, and people are inclined to think that we're just starting him all over again. And I know we have documented frustrations about the offensive line, but I really don't think they're that stupid to start him again thinking he is the solution. So do any of you think Dakota Dozier will actually start like as the plan in week 1?
So I actually, to your point, Dust, I actually love him coming back on a minimum as a backup, much like what we've done with Rashad Hill over the past few years. Like, I love having a guy who has experience and can step in a pinch. But if we have to go into the season with him starting at anywhere on the offensive line, we are in trouble. But as a depth guy, like for someone, if a guy gets rolled up on and you need someone to come in, you need someone who at least knows what to do and knows how to play. Whether or not it's efficient enough, that's a different story. But I'd rather have a guy that knows what to do and can at least give you a few good snaps, just not a full game.
Yeah, and that's kind of what he was with the Jets, and it's what he was with us. And then we had the brilliant idea to start him, which didn't work out. So I think that the powers that be probably realized that and say, well, we're going to bring him back as the depth guy. That's what I perceived this at the moment that I saw the notification that told me he resigns. That was, but it was portrayed a lot differently than what I had in mind. Drew, do you think Dozier is the plan to start, or what's your pulse?
No, I don't think it's the plan to start. I think that you're spot on. We're in agreement on a lot of this. There's a few interesting points. So as bad as the defense was last year, I think we had to score at a more frenetic pace than what our offense was probably accustomed to. A lot more dedicated passing downs than what we'd seen in the past. I think that was also probably what played into the lack of success, even in things like the screen game. I mean, if you look at Dozier's PFF grades, and we can debate, how accurate those are. His run blocking grade was at least over 50. So like there's a positive.
Silver
but
how much of that was Dalvin Cook though, just making guys miss and making them look better?
Hey, and I'm sure that part plays into it. But as a backup, as a swing guy, I mean, we made the move for Mason Cole, and frankly, I don't even think that he's probably the answer. I think that there's going to be a lot more moves on the offensive line based on what happens in the draft and thereafter.
Okay. Bryant, did you ever have any up and down years with your performance? Like, you look back at, I don't know, pick a random one.
Not a whole year. I might have like some games, like but not a whole year.
Well, like running backs will have down years. Like statistically, they're probably because they're hurt. I mean, not because they're missing time, but they might be hampered. And so I wondered if there was ever a year where you look back and you're like, damn it, that 2006 or whatever, like just wasn't feeling it. I
can't say a whole year, like
okay.
Not a whole year.
Yeah, I knew the answer to that going in, but I had to hear your take.
I played better.
The other thing,
did you have major injuries? I don't remember.
No, I mean just tore a meniscus.
Okay. So
when was that?
I tore my meniscus in the San Diego game. But AP had went for like all those yards.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
I was on my 21st birthday.
Out the rest of the season. I played the rest of the season with it, and then I just got surgery at the end of the season.
When did you wear your big club?
I wore that club. I had broke my hand in training camp, and then I broke it again during the season.
Yeah.
And I had to put the club on.
Helps cut down holdings, I bet.
It did. But you had to really think about how to place this club, because you're really one-handed. You have to like really hit with the club, like balled up.
So I was going to ask, so it seems like one of the most underrated things about offensive line, offensive linemen are the only positions on the field that play every single snap. The only position on the field that they only zoom in on you if you jump off sides. Right. but also like you don't, like, unless there's an injury or getting rolled up on, like you're not coming in and out like a D lineman, like they'll bring someone out.
You're in there for the long haul.
And you're out there and you're still like, you're going up full on strength against the guy opposite of you. Like how
2-minute drill. If you start like on the 20 or anywhere like that, and as soon as you get to the 50, a new wave of defensive linemen come running that's fresh.
Yeah.
I'm like, gosh, here we go.
So how does that work? Like as an offense? Because again, I think it's a very underrated characteristic because, like I said, you're out there and you're battling, keeping the guy on the opposite side, like at bay, and then through 2-minute drill, they might be bringing someone else in. Like, how is that you're able to, I guess go for say an 8-minute drive and be able to be productive in an atmosphere like that?
I look at it as I feel like the defensive linemen have to run more than us, because like once we finish engaging and blocking, they have to turn this to run to the ball side. Like, okay, they're exerting a little more energy. And, I'll take my time, bend down the field, like trot down a little bit, conserve some energy. So I look at it like that, but I just try to really wear them down. Like hopefully I get a chance to like run at them. But just mentally, you already kind of know that. And that's how I already knew, like, okay, if we start way back on the 20, I know once we get to the 50-yard line or better, the whole new line is going to come in as fresh. and it happens every time. So
Hockey.
Does that mean is it more of like a physically tolling workout, like you're just bench pressing
2 minute drill
nonstop?
is definitely a physically tolling
Yeah.
period of time. And then a lot of times 2 minute drill, they know it's pass too. So you're like in pass protection. You're in pass protection mode a lot of times too. So it can be very physically draining.
Sally, do you think Dozier will start, or are you just scared of that would be the outcome?
I mean, I would be surprised if he did, if there isn't a major injury in camp, or something like that. Otherwise, like you said, his contract, it's not like there's a huge commitment there or anything. They can cut him after camp, which they're going to bring in a lot more guys to take to camp anyways that aren't going to make the team. So I don't know if the reaction fit what actually went down. But no, I doubt it.
I think it was because we were so hesitant at that point, and still now, to sign a guard. And you had all the memes circulating about just sign a guard, damn it. And then they did, and it was Dozier. It was just like pure comedy.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what was said. So to a T.
Well,
Sally,
also signed the traffic.
Careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah, I hear you. Sally, the Vikings don't have a bona fide QB2, a backup quarterback, unless one perceives Nate Stanley as that, nor do they have an established wide receiver 3, unless one perceives Chad Beebe as that. So how soon will one of those positions be filled during the draft? Like what round?
I would actually be surprised if they go quarterback at all, especially since I know Nate Stanley was 7th round last year, but I mean, maybe it's never a bad idea to draft a guy. I know no one loves Sean Mannion, but like we said, Cousins is very durable, and it doesn't seem like you necessarily need to invest in that position right now, knock on wood. So, but as far as the wide receiver goes, we got rid of Sharp, right? So not that he was really a third wide receiver 3 anyway. I
Only
would
on 4th and short, throw it deep.
yeah. I would say wide receiver would be more likely, 4th, 5th round for sure, that they'll pick up one of those.
Okay, Ron, what do you got?
So now, well, ironic, because I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of Vikings fans who their guy became available, not Teddy, but Kyle Sloter is available. But he's actually a guy that, like, if they brought him back to compete for the backup and be a backup, because with Kirk, you don't need a cerebral quarterback to be the backup to him. You need someone who, if anything happens to Kirk, it's like I saw a quote the other day that I completely forgot about, but it was Tom Moore in Indianapolis that why don't you practice more with your backup as opposed to Peyton? He says, well, if 18 goes down, we're effed, and we don't practice for effed.
Stole my analogy, man. I was going to use that. You stole it.
So, but I mean, so if Kirk goes down, we're likely screwed anyways. Why not bring in the guy who at least showed that, hey, like, I can do great in a preseason 4 football game, but at least like have some sort of moxie to him where he might not, we don't need the quarterback 2 to be a mentor to Kirk. Kirk is very well set. So as far as drafting one, that's obviously the other option. And, I don't know where they always say, oh, there's going to be a bunch of guys that go in the 3rd round, but then they don't. Like last year was Eason, who I think was the mid-round kind of gem, but everyone else kind of just at that point, it's a drop in the hat. So whether it's Kellen Mond or any of these other guys that are popping, if we have to go to the backup, then our shows next year are going to be a little bit more somber anyways. Doesn't matter who it is. So
I hear you. So on Slaughter, I just want to point out, maybe people don't realize this, Slaughter has never taken a snap of regular season football in his life. I just want to point that out.
But he's so great.
Well, I know that he had that sweet preseason and that moment, final game preseason moment.
Nope.
But just like Mannion's never thrown a touchdown pass, Slaughter has never taken a snap in the regular season. And because he's been so many places, we assume that he's got in to kneel the ball, and he hasn't even done that. So.
Well, that's what I just find comical, because everyone, whether it's him or, at least Taylor Heineke, some people are getting some, cashing some checks on that. Like, hey, he's got maybe a chance to start, but they're clamoring for this guy because they see, preseason game 4 and,
it's fun. I love that.
All the other teams apparently are messing up.
And nobody gets it except for us. Yeah. All right, Drew. What goes What do the Vikings fill first, if any of those, QB2 or WR3 during the draft?
Yeah, so I think if anything, it's WR3. I agree with Sally. It's probably the third or fourth round is probably when they would address it. Frankly, I'm expecting. I almost expect Spielman to move back from the 14 and try to pick up something in the second round as well. I think he's going to try to increase flexibility there. A couple targets, someone like Shee Smith out of South Carolina. He's projected to be like an early fourth round guy. Also, I just had the name and I lost it.
He's a speedster, isn't he?
He's a speedster. You have Amari Rogers, who didn't show a ton of great separation. The kid out of Louisville, why can't Tutu Atwell? Also just like an absolute burner. I feel like if we're going to add a wide receiver 3, we're looking for some elite athleticism there. You want some guys who can run those seam routes and become really prevalent, especially off of something like play action. So I think something like that would be a really good fit.
So now to your point there, like being in the Indianapolis area, like at Purdue with Rondale Moore, like I know he's probably more in the second round type player.
Yeah.
And I know it looked like, as far as his lateral movement, like he seems like elite, but his size is concerning to me. Like, is he more of just like a KJ Hamler, like that he might be able to do one thing well, or can he be like a Deshaun Jackson type player who actually has an impact more than
so if Rondale Moore was like 6'3", he would be the number 1 wide receiver recruit in this class, and I firmly believe that. Having seen him live, I mean, he's electric. He's very small. I would almost call him like mini Percy Harvin if I'm calling him anything. I would say call him that over something like a KJ Hamler.
Okay.
But
so he has some toughness to him.
I mean, he's one that, like, even if he goes to a team like like if he goes to a team like Kansas City or something that has a really creative like offensive coordinator or just play caller in general, he'll take tailback snaps. I mean, they put him all over the place, and I firmly believe that in the NFL he'll be able to do that. And I don't think his size would be an issue. He's tough to the ball. He graded out extremely well in 2019 when he played.
I think the conversation on size, wide receiver height, has really changed over the last decade. We used to, especially Vikings fans, loved the tall, lanky ones like Moss, or even the Cowboys days with Alvin Harper and those dudes. But now, I think the shorter ones or the not tall ones are just as productive and, even better. Like Justin Jefferson isn't tall. Antonio Brown was never tall, and in his heyday, he was leading the league and whatnot and all the metrics. The final topic I have for tonight, and this one is for Bryant, and this is a serious note. When we talked to Troy Williamson last week, he talked about CTE. We talked about the audits and all that ridiculousness. I've known you since August, and I've never heard about the CTE aspect with your life. And I was wondering if you'd be comfortable telling us about that at all. Like, what affects you?
Oh yeah. I know I had to do the testing. When the testing came back, they was like, you qualified. But the testing is very long.
But I mean, what about your day-to-day? Do you experience CTE?
Day-to-day, what I do is I try to keep myself busy all the time. And I have probably trouble going to sleep at times. So I take the CBD gummies now. But going to sleep is an issue. I just thought, I don't know why, going to sleep is a bad thing. I just can't go to sleep at night. So I have to keep myself busy throughout the day to kind of burn myself out, like to wear myself out. And then everything else, just mentally, I always just try to continue to keep learning things and keep myself active. So I kind of do things to kind of be proactive, where other people may sit and kind of do nothing, and mentally they worsen and things like that. So I always try to be a little more proactive when I learned about it, and I learned some of the side effects, things like that, and what you should do. I said, okay, let me start working out. You know what I'm saying? And it gives off endorphins, and it helps give you good energy and things like that. Let me start, so that's why I take dance class. That's why I'm taking tennis lessons. I'm doing things to continue to keep learning, to keep the brain functioning. And also it just helps the body too, when you keep working out. So yeah, and I took that test, I'm gonna say 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And sometime last year, I think they told me I can't say I didn't qualify, but they just told me I wasn't going to get it because I don't know. They told me I was too active.
Now with that, like obviously like CTE, just like, and Troy was talking about mental health last week, like it affects everyone differently. So I'm not saying that you're gonna hop in a boxing ring and to go 12 rounds with Floyd Mayweather or something, but like are there any like physical restraints that like, or I mean, I'm sure you have it now where at least you avoid things that may like cause negative side effects, but are there like physical restraints that you could do in your playing days that you just can't do now?
Standing up for a too long period of time is like can be a little bothering. There's certain things that that's just with age, wear and tear on your body and stuff.
And the air's thinner up there too, so
probably that too. But there's some things that your body's not conditioned to do anymore. So you're not gonna be able to do it anymore. Like once you leave that, I feel like too, once you leave football, all the aches and pains that you might not have felt, you start to feel all of a sudden. Like, oh my gosh, why my body's really, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's a big part of keeping yourself active, because when you don't, you start to feel everything. So a lot of guys that I know, I told you I have a group chat with a lot of my UM guys, and I hear DJ Williams talk about it a lot. A lot of people have different things that they deal with, and a lot of things, I guess, mentally and physically. And everybody tries to continue to like just work out and do things to stay active.
Not be a baked potato like you said last week.
Right, but I feel like that's what they want you to be.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything they feel like giving you money is curing it, but they're not doing anything or creating any programs to do things to help people mentally, get through things or anything. It's just like, okay, you grade out this level, you're qualified for this amount of money. That money's not gonna change it. Well, guess what? I gotta use that money to pay this tennis coach and all the other people I'm hiring. Like, hello. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still trying to be productive.
Now I know like the NFL, obviously, like they have whatever and I don't know all the rules, but like for retired players, like benefits, whatever that is, the little bit that they do provide. Does the NCAA have any of that? To me, the NCAA is the biggest crock of shit out there because they profit off of everyone.
But they're just not allowing guys to get paid for marketing or using their likeness or whatever now.
Right, but is there any sort of like insurance type stuff that like that college?
No, they've been getting paid for years.
And they're a non-profit organization too. So
is the league, so is the NFL.
Yeah, so is the NFL.
It's all got to go to Goodell somehow. So.
Hey, Brian, I heard dance lessons in there, man. I got to ask, what are you taking? Is it salsa? What are we doing? Can we see a little something?
One of my friends is a choreographer, so he kind of mixes it up. It can be anything. It depends on where he is in the mood to teach that day when we go in there. And I do that really to help mentally, retain information, and then also from the physical aspect.
That's awesome, man.
Sally, you want to follow up with Brian?
Yeah, sure. I was just curious, how many head injuries can you point to that you think you've had? I know that the concussion testing is a lot different now and more thorough. So do you think you have a lot when you were young that maybe you didn't even know
what's
about?
Crazy? They said, I watched the study and they said it's not even about having concussions. They said the contacts are little waves by itself. So every time you're contacting somebody, it's creating a little wave, like, you know what I mean? But I just remember I remember one where it was like the lights went out, but then they came back on. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like it happened for me and the other person. I think it was a playoff game. I think it was I was with the Ravens. It was a playoff game. I want to say maybe New England. And me and the defensive lineman, we just like charged out, boom. And it was like a period of time where it seemed like the lights really went out, like, and it was just, I seen darkness. And then it was like, it powered back on and I could see again. And I just ran at him again because I felt like he must have stuck too for a minute because he wasn't moving either. Like he was kind of like, we both kind of went back like, and I guess all of a sudden I could see faster and I hit him again.
Okay.
So that was one. That was only one that I remember like, whoa, that was a lot. That's the one that stood out the most.
What do you think they're so afraid of? Why they don't want to just be open and honest about everything? Because everyone already knows that CTE is caused by contact, like you described. We learn more about it all the time. So it seems like they're just being dishonest, and I don't think that that's a look for them. But why? One,
they don't have to fork out all this money to all these different people that are qualifying for it, so they're going to try to find ways and loopholes to not have to pay people because that saves the money. And then two. They don't want people to now not kind of stray away from the sport or having their kids play the sport because they realize that sport could be a little dangerous.
But that's happening anyway. Like they should still take care of you guys. That's what I don't understand. Honestly,
I feel like the way that it's set up is it's all about what have you done for me lately, and it's like, okay, you don't want to do it. Well, we got somebody else that come right in and take your place, and they'll do exactly what you wouldn't do. So, a lot of guys are trying to feed their families, do things. So some people will put their body on the line. I mean, I had, but I didn't realize CTE wasn't a thing. Then you just got your bell rung back when I came in, and you got back out there. Like towards the end of my career, that's when they started talking about it. So we weren't educated, enough when I first got in. It was just like you got your bell rung. And later on, towards the end of my career, that's when they started talking about the whole concussion and CTE. Like a lot of people had concussions. When I was in college, I knew a few guys that was getting concussions a lot, but it was never CTE was never attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that is towards the end here. We won't talk to you again, Drew, at least on air before the draft. So you're gonna lead us out of the show. I want you to tell us what you think the Vikings will do in the first round of the draft. Not what you want, what you think, your prediction.
I think they trade back.
Okay.
I think Elijah Vera Tucker, if he's there in like the 20s, if they can move back with a team like Pittsburgh, like we talked about, I think that's probably the play.
Okay.
Fills a guard spot. We got to save Garrett Bradbury. I feel so bad for that guy, man. Just gets beat up every play. But yeah, I think it's a trade back, if anything.
Okay. All right, that's all we got for tonight. We'll be back next week for probably more draft talk. Maybe we can figure out some mini mock draft that we do between the four of us. And then I'm going to the draft in Cleveland the following week, so we might have to bump the show up to a Tuesday night, but I doubt that'll be too much of a problem. But that's all we got for tonight, and Skol Vikings. All right, Drew, thanks, my dude. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah,
Hey,
nice
for
to
sure,
meet you.
guys. Hey, thanks for having me. Great to meet you guys. I'll see you.
Yeah.
And the rest of you will be back on the Wednesday schedule unless one of you object, okay?
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Oh, yeah, not a problem.
For
No
that.
problem.
Later.
Okay, bye.
Have a good one.